assist clubs in developing individualized strategies for their unique situations. Frank joined McMahon Group in 1988 and has more than 35 years of experience in the management and development of hospitality properties, including private clubs, athletic clubs, resorts, and restaurants. Frank is a past president of the Country Club of St. Albans, a 36-hole country club located in Missouri, and is the former owner of Concord Sports Club, a 1,700-member family athletic club in St. Louis. Frank was elected to the board of the National Club Association in 2011 and was elected to the executive committee in 2016. Please welcome Frank.
Great. Well, hello, everyone, and nice to be with you this afternoon. Great opportunity to be able to do this and bring us all together despite the restrictions and the lack of travel available to us these days. I would certainly, I think I'd prefer, although it's a beautiful day in Missouri, I'd prefer to be in California today and meeting with you all individually. But we'll get back to that before long, and that's really part of our conversation today. When I first talked with Crystal about this conference or this session some months ago, she said, well, just talk about trends like you usually do and kind of talk about what's going on in the world of clubs. So little did we know what would be going on in the world of clubs at that time, and so it's perhaps a little more complex of an environment than we might have anticipated. But so what we've done for today is to kind of break the program into two parts. And on the first part of this, we're really going to talk about planning in this time of uncertainty that we face. And that's really a key piece, is to make sure that we continue to plan and that we act by plan. We've noted before in times of challenge, we went through sort of the recession after 2007, 2008, in that time period. Some clubs were not well prepared, and they just kind of shot from the hip and made some quick moves that they later ultimately rejected or did not like, or sort of negative on their longer term position. And so, it's really important now, as you deal with your board and think about where your club's going, urgency to sort of get open and think about what's going to happen next with that. Obviously, there'll be some budgeting pressures and other things that need to be thought through, but that's really the message, is to think through in that time of uncertainty and make sure that things are happening in an orderly manner as you do that. So, as I say, as we talk about in our initial piece here right now, we are in this time of great uncertainty. What we do know is the pandemic will end, and that's starting to look a little bit brighter. Seems like we're coming under some of the forecast challenges there for death and illness, and seems like the country is doing a very good job of sheltering in place and holding the virus in check and those sorts of things. And so that's great news for everyone's health and everything as we do that. And really many things that have changed will quickly return to normal. There'll be things that people are going to get right back to. There are other things that are maybe never going to go back to the way that they were. Certainly for all of us, kind of right in the heart of the hospitality business, I think we could expect that we're going to be more in that category of things that may never go back to the way they were, or certainly that it will take some time. Until really, as they're projecting through the end of 2021, where we might get, vaccine, and even prior to that, where we might get some antivirals, we'll maybe start to see a return to large-scale social events, weddings and parties, and big group outings and events that way. Certainly, as we look to things like air travel and other aspects of hospitality, lodging, etc., probably going to be well through 2020 and into 21 when that happens. It's hard to tell really which ones, certainly when those things will occur, and sort of what exactly will happen, as we say, in those areas that will be unaffected and unimpacted by this, and those that will change rather dramatically. But the important point here is not to let that uncertainty overwhelm us, and really most importantly, overwhelm our boards. I was talking to a manager earlier today from a club that we're working with on the East Coast, and they sort of delayed and deferred, and now all of a sudden the board's saying, hey, let's get together with Frank. Let's get together just like we are here today in a webinar forecast. Let's talk about where we're going from here and think about those kinds of things. And that light bulb's going on, and hopefully it's starting to go on for our boards, that we can't let that uncertainty overwhelm us. The lack of the failure to plan is a plan to fail, as they always say, right? So, and I think the other big takeaway that I have from this is, this notion that, things are probably always a bit less certain than we allow ourselves to believe. A lot of times we develop plans and we're pretty, very certain about what's going to happen next. And the reality is we're always subject to things as dramatic as this sort of black swan event, to little individual things that may happen in our own particular club and our own area. So we still have to plan to go ahead despite the challenges and the big picture that we'll have. As I say, we're all obviously ingrained in and passionate about the service industry, and there's certainly views there that suggest, the pandemic is almost sure to leave a mark on the way people work, shop, and socialize, perhaps permanently, shifting the way many service industries operate. As you say, perhaps permanently. And certainly we're going to see a near-term effect on that. Certainly something that we're thinking there's a window of the next 6 or 8 weeks where we're maybe going to be emerging out of this, and we'll emerge out of this slowly to where things will pick up more rapidly and eventually return to normal. So there are many different emotions and thoughts among our board, among our staff, that we as managers and clubs leaders need to manage at this point in time and work through. And, as you see here from the, Wiseman and DiCenzo here as their quotes, really thinking they're taking a stab at this and saying, perhaps permanently shifting the way that some of these industries operate. On the other side, some have a view that say, I'm going out on a limb here, but I don't think much of anything's going to change. And I wish people would stop saying so for 2 whole weeks after 2 whole weeks of practicing isolation and social distancing. My expectation is, like most things in life, the truth is somewhere in between those two viewpoints. As we say, there will be some areas of change, and there'll be some areas that will remain quite the same as they are today. But our big takeaway, and the message I want to leave with us in this section of our presentation today, is that, from the greatest planner of all time and somebody truly challenged with end-of-world style events, if you will, Eisenhower said, in preparing for battle, I always found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. And I think today, coaching your board and working with your staff and executives as you think about where you're going from here, that's a great message, because you're going to have some saying, well, how do we know how to plan in this time of uncertainty? What should we do? And frankly, we're always kind of guessing. We need to take an informed guess, educated guess, think about those kinds of things, absorb all that information, and then really you take your best shot. And we're certainly recommending that within this environment, it's extremely important to remain nimble and agile. I know I serve on several boards right now. We're meeting every couple of weeks to talk about where we are. Most of those are either associations or clubs, or breaking their budgets down into 2 and 4 week increments to get a sense of are things going according to plan. They're making forecasts and adjusting their forecast accordingly. And so I think that's really important to do, and an important dialogue to have with the leaders of your club. To procrastinate or to defer that planning activity, you're really allowing your club to have what I would call an accidental strategy. You have a strategy one way or another. We may want to very formally memorialize that in large, sort of dissertation style papers. We may want to put that down onto 2 sheets of paper. But the fact of the matter is we have to have the dialogue and spend the time so that we're intentional and we're moving forward in a thoughtful way, in a considered way, and a professional way as we look to that. And I think that's a key takeaway in our great time of uncertainty here today. We will get through this. We need to develop plans to get through that, think about where we're going, and act accordingly. We're going to be talking a lot in our second portion of the meeting today about, sort of big picture trends. And I hope many of you saw, we just sent out to most of you. I would expect have gotten. If you haven't, certainly please contact us. But our 2020 trends report just came out within the last month. It doesn't mention anything about COVID, which actually is of course, an interesting aspect of that. Again, there we are forecasting, we're thinking about the future, but you could never see something like this coming. But it does spend a lot of time on the other things that we are doing a lot of research on, we are getting information on, and understanding what's happening in clubs and projecting go out to the future. So I encourage you to get a copy of that 2020 forecast, circulate that with your board, circulate that with your department leaders and staff, and I think you'll find a lot of useful information in that. I say here on the title, here thinking about that big picture, really saying, sort of the song remains the same, and by that I'm a music fan. Led Zeppelin's maybe not in my top 10, but they've got some great music out there themselves. But we all remember that album and that song that came from that. And as I was saying, really, the song remains the same, and that's to suggest that for the true ongoing part of our clubs, the hospitality that we offer, the environment that we offer that in, we believe at McMahon, and we're getting verification of this in research that we're conducting now. We've gotten that by looking out at what's happening in China and other countries that have gone through SARS events previously, that the macro trends will remain intact. And by that, I really mean the evolution in our clubs from sort of narrow and specialist style services and programs to really thinking about a broad-based member experience, right? One that really impacts everyone in that member household, member and spouse and children, right? And that's really been a departure. As mentioned at the beginning, I've been working with clubs for over 30 years now, and we've really seen that evolution where it was member focused. Frankly, most of our golf clubs, country clubs around that time were fixated on the golf experience, and they had some enhancer experiences to that. They might have had a swimming pool, they might have had some other offerings there, but it was really about that member and their golf experience. And as we all know, that has really evolved significantly in recent years. A whole host of reasons behind that. Certainly what's women's role in society, again, another trends report that we spent a lot of time in last year, looking at how women think about clubs and what their expectations are. Good information coming from that. And certainly the role of family today. People with children today spend about 80% of their non-work time doing things with their children. A lot of that is because the amount of discretionary time up until this great cessation in activity, that amount of time was smaller because we generally face a two-income household these days. And so the family aspect that is extremely important within the club world. So nothing's going to change that. We'll look at some demographic information in a moment that we think emphasizes that point for you. But as we go forward, and whether it's this short-term plan that you're going to create for the summer of 2020, or whether it's your longer-term strategic plan when you're thinking about 2025 and beyond, those key watchwords we believe remain community, right? Community, bringing our members together in a variety of ways and activities that way. As I mentioned, family. Family is extremely important, as I say, both for the makeup of the membership profile today, as well as the impact that has on joining. The average joiner, as we'll see in a minute today, is a 42-year-old couple with 2 children, assuming that we're at a, kind of a country club with golf. And so, they have traditional expectations around that club. Certainly somebody wants to play golf in that experience. They want to enjoy other aspects of that club, but they're really looking at that family aspect as a key element of in their decision making to join. Certainly casual. We think that theme is again going to pick up and accelerate based on what's been going on. Most of us are now connecting this way online. If you follow the business world like I do, we've seen presentations from some of the CEOs of the largest companies in the country doing that from their home office, doing that via their iPhone. I think a lot of pretense in society that you're sort of dressed up in a suit and tie and have more authority and more information than other people, I think it's gone away. We've certainly been living in a more casual world. Most of us here on this conversation today, based in California, really the invention of casual lifestyle, casual dress in many, many ways. We think that'll, again, pick up and accelerate through these events. And really one simple test that we look for clubs these days, is your club fun? And again, we're going to come back to a period where people are going to be looking for fun, easy, simple, fun things to do. Strip away that pretense, those sorts of things, and really the notion of getting people together in community, in family, in casual areas will certainly be a driving force. And again, we're more than ever, right? Again, emphasized by our current events focused on fitness and wellness. That'll be a huge piece of going forward today. That is a key role, and really our research shows, and we showed nothing to change that to this point, and I would bet further emphasize that fitness in many ways for most of our clubs, and again, if you're a club with golf, we think fitness will be the analog of the way golf built and drove the club of the past. We strongly believe fitness will be a driver of the club of the future. I suspect all of us, and know that all of us right now from our conversations are going through budget adjustments, financial adjustments, staffing plans. All those things are changing given what's happening with the COVID activities here. And so, let's say on the slide here, your North Star in all that, as you think through it, is the notion of what all great clubs are built upon, which is quality, consistency, and value. So you should look at these experiences, and if you have to, in June, July, and August, and we can start getting back in business, we're not going to, again, turn on the light switch and suddenly the club is going to be flooded with activity. We're doing everything just the way we have in the past. We're going to have to make selections and have some priority in order to do that. But we need to ask ourselves at every junction, are we doing that in a quality manner? Secondly, on the consistency front, we think that'll be even more important as we go forward. One of the true advantages and opportunities all clubs face in this environment is the safe and secure environment which they offer to our members. And so as you put in protocols to make sure the club is safe and secure, those need to be consistently practiced and enforced. Often we're talking about that consistency in relation to maybe the presentation of the golf course or the quality of the food or the presentation of the food and those sorts of things. Here, that also branches over into the club being a secure place, a safe place, and your consistent application of those policies, your visible approach to food safety and sanitation, cleanliness of the club, all those sorts of things need to be adopted and consistently enforced every day. And then certainly value will remain, a big piece of this. I'm actually amazed at what clubs are finding and doing in terms of, say, and I guess you can't do it there, or you are doing it there, I'm sorry, in California, but to-go foods. I know my club is offering to-go meals. They really have thought through it. They're executing beautifully. Microwavable containers that you can take away. It's easy to bring home, warm up. And they're doing that at, meals for two people to take away for $40, right? They're not paying the bills with that, but they're helping to maintain the club's connection with its staff and with the members as they're doing that. It's a great value. We're enjoying that, and you want to certainly, that's applicable right now. Again, as you think about activities that you roll out in the 2020 season, focusing on value is going to be extremely important in that scenario. Again, in the theme of optimism, and I would tell you that this is, for me, the biggest takeaway when I look at the club world today, and I think about where we've been and the challenges that we faced, whether it was from 9/11 or the Great Recession, and even as we've come out to what was really, pretty good economic times in 15, 16, 17, all the way up to this year as we got into 2020. Clubs were still facing some challenges as we did that. A big piece of that, we believe, was demographics. And so the chart that you're looking at here is a chart of birth, the number of people born each year, going all the way back into the 20s, the greatest generation. Then we had the silent generation. We see the dip there, and we see the baby boomers coming out of the war. We see another dip then into the 70s we had a lot of controversy, a lot of, again, economic stress and other things in those environments. And then we started to work our way up. So when I mentioned that 42-year-old couple that joined your club today, they're not quite at the bottom of this chart. 1973 was, but they're not much far, not far off the bottom. And so you'll notice that line continues to go up, almost equal to the 1957 line. So the message for clubs there is the big force awaiting us is the aging of the millennial generation over the course of the next 10 plus years. The number of people that are in the prime joining years is going to increase every year. So sure, one of the reasons that we've had some down years in the last decade, global economic changes, again, other factors there that are part of that, but demographics were a big part of it. Those are turning in our favor, and we think that is great news. And so of all the things that we look at today, we think this aging of the millennials is going to be great. Most joiners are between the ages of 35 and 45, and that number of people is going to increase as we move ahead here. And that is really great news for us and something to be thinking about as you look at your club and its offerings. And we're not going to turn this into a presentation all about millennials and what they want. I'm just thrilled about the numbers. And that is that supply is there. And when anybody has an increasing addressable market, they have an opportunity to grow their business. We all have the opportunity to grow our business now because of what's happening with the millennials. We've certainly seen a lot of changes in, sort of how we live more broadly. We've been doing that. We've had, kind of pretty traditionally a world where we were at home and we went to work, and, a lot of people we deal with, whether they had a 9-to-5 life or a more intensive career than that, they went to work, and when they weren't home and they weren't working, they came to the club or where they went to other places to play. And that was sort of the normative, lifestyle that everyone had. Those silos have been breaking down for years now, and those silos are really going to be crushed and changed by what's going on with the COVID and the technology forces that are out there today. We certainly working from home is a big piece of this, and that'll present an opportunity for our clubs. Frankly, we were planning and offering prior to this at our clubs places where members could make calls, could work on a laptop, could use the club as a bit of that home away from home. And the whole idea is the club is that third place. Was really growing right up to these events. and now will be more so. Look at all our businesses out there. Everybody's thinking about, why do we need that office space? This working remotely seems to be going very well. I think you're going to see more of that. That means more time at the club. They're still going to work hard, but they can also then decide that they're going to work at, at 10 o'clock in the morning, or they're going to go to a yoga class at 10 o'clock in the morning and work at 10 o'clock at night. Those opportunities are certainly available to most of the people that we interact with and most of the people that are members of our club. The adaptation of technology, just our ability to have this kind of meeting today. I think all of us have had more Zoom meetings and webinars and webcast, whatever, WebEx, every one of those platforms. We've all been participating those in recent days. And as we're all more fluent with that, people are going to say, hey, let's do more of this. We can do more of that. And that, again, represents some real opportunity for clubs. So we think the COVID-19, as I say, will have broad implications on consumer behavior. Still, subject to further, validation and evolution as we do that. But we're seeing that slower pace of life. Crystal and I were talking as we came on today. Two of us are real road warriors, right? And we have to watch. We're getting spoiled, sleeping in our own bed and seeing our families all the time and all those kinds of things. There has been a slower pace of life with that. That'll last for a while as we do that, until people get comfortable and further down the road in terms of looking at this. And the notion that simple is better is certainly, again, one of your watchwords, particularly for 2020. That allows us more time to focus on both individual and family well-being. People are having smaller social circles. I'm sure you, like me and Mary, my family, we've got some folks that we've been seeing in kind of this social distancing configuration. We're comfortable with that group. We know those people. We know what they're doing. It take a while before we break out of those out of those circles. And so we want to, that behavior is going to last for a while. And as we said, increased online connections are a big part of it. Shopping, educating, working, education, working, friendships, all those kinds of things being maintained through these technological platforms. As part of what's happening out there. As you say, remote work clearly is going to become more common. A lot of popularity of arts and crafts. Those of you in gated communities and other clubs that offer enrichment activities, real opportunity for that. Cooking has become more popular, and cooking was a bit of a lost art going into this. And so, again, a way for chefs to interact with membership through cooking classes and those sorts of things. And really, again, increased focus on food safety and hygiene. Really important to adopt those practices, be visible about those, build confidence of our membership. And so, as effective leaders for your club, important to understand and innovate around these changes and behaviors that we see there. And so that could be, as we say here, some smaller gathering events at the club. It could be connecting more frequently with our membership through technological platforms. It could be offering some enrichment activities that maybe were not a big part of our platform before, and changing other practices that we have here at the club. So as we look to this year, I think it's important in your messaging to really celebrate your advantages. I'm in that camp. And certainly influenced by living in Missouri here. We've clearly been impacted by this, but we are not California. None of us, thankfully, are New York and some of the other hotspots that way. But even where it hasn't been so severe, like here in the Midwest, we think when that economic activity returns, clubs really have the opportunity to be a first choice. Again, thinking about supply, as we were talking earlier, members are going to be reluctant to travel. Most of our members are In California, our members are jetting off to Hawaii all the time. Members are going to Europe for their trips. They're taking their family vacations. 2020 is certainly going to be a year where we expect people are going to stay closer to home. This staycation is going to be back in vogue. And that's a real opportunity for a club, even if we're practicing some limited, takeaway foods or simpler food service or modified golf or other kinds of things as we come out of that. We believe our members are going to look to our club first than they are thinking about, geez, let's get on a plane and fly somewhere. Let's go to the busiest restaurant in town. Let's go out to the baseball game. Let's go to a concert. I think all those things get pushed away. And so your message is to really offer to your membership that we do have this safe and secure environment. We are here to serve as your home away from home as a club. As I say, the staycation back and forth, and emphasize this notion that you are this third place, trusted place in their lives, a private member enclave. I think, again, we'll unwind our offering the way we got here, meaning, we probably won't have a lot of guest activity right away and all those sorts of things. And it's about membership and folks that we know, a knowledgeable, caring staff, not just a random server, but Chris, the bartender that we know well, and all those kinds of things, who cares about the members, and we care about him. Big point to emphasize. And we think that we'll see medical officers and those kinds of things at clubs, Walmart and others quickly taking temperatures as you come on site. That certainly could be a June, July kind of activity. We think you want to man your entrances coming into the club so that we're controlling there. And I think at the bottom here, I would say I would stress these features when members consider resigning. If you were, at a club in 2007, 2008, a lot of members seem to just very quickly, jump off the bus there. And we did find for the first time that within a couple of years, amnesty programs and bringing them back was an opportunity, because the world didn't get as bad as they may have assumed it was going to get. And so if you're talking to some members and you're thinking about resigning now and uncertain about how they'll use the club, it's really important is to stress these advantages for them and let them know that we are safe and secure. We are this special place, and a place that they want to really think twice about giving up at this time, because of the way we can control our environment where others can't. So, as I mentioned, as we look at this, there's sort of no, kind of all clear here, where all of a sudden we'll be going back to normal. It will be a gradual awakening. People will be cautious. There'll be some regional differences, maybe in your state, even differences between Southern California and Northern California, between the desert clubs and the urban clubs, those sorts of things. You'll have to work through those again in your planning. As mentioned, start to plan now for how you'll make your club that safe place. Your entrances, emphasizing smaller is better, limiting guests, those aspects of it. I would say big message, and something we're stressing with our boards and getting a lot of traction on, stressing with our managers, is that as you look at resetting coming out of the cessation of activities, it's really important to think about who you are, who you need to be as a club. What are your values? What's your mission? Clubs made a lot of mistakes in 2007, 2009, quickly cutting initiation fees. Sometime they had tiered dues levels for members who have been around for a while and new members. They eliminated a general manager, thinking, well, these committees can run the club, or they eliminated mid-level staff that are, again, those lieutenants who are out on the floor and really have connection with our members and stress that personal relationship to the club. Started chasing non-member activities, or the other way around, cutting services and going on defense, and really focusing on sort of the budget line of the financial statements rather than the value side of that. So it's really vital to act in concert with your mission, your vision, and your values. Understand the trends, understand the kind of things that we're talking about here today. Millennials are coming, lifestyles are changing in many ways that play right into our clubs. And then internally, understand the real drivers of your member experience. Why are they at the club? What's important to them, and all that? And we see a lot of that remains the notion that the enhancers of that experience, particularly food and beverage, is a key driver that often gets criticized and shortchanged when thinking about its role in building community and building camaraderie among our membership. So it's important that you reaffirm that vision with your board, and then you taking that direction as a club executive, determining your staff needs, your budget allocations, all those aspects of that as you get into it. It needs to be done through that strategic lens and avoid that cut, the randomness of that, and the negative longer-term impacts that will have. And as I say, you'll have other sort of core values at your particular club, maybe around family, maybe around the legacy and history of the club, et cetera. But certainly quality, consistency, and value need to be at the top of the chart as you're looking at that. I love this quote by Roy Disney, right? It's not hard to make decisions when you know what your values are. And so when you're bored and when you and your staff are sort of challenged by, okay, what changes do we make here? How do we roll forward this year? What kind of things can we and should we be doing here at the club and going forward? Reflecting on your values and thinking about that's going to be an extremely important part of the puzzle. So as we go to summer 2020, as we mentioned, we think we kind of come out of this as we got here. Safety first in all you do. Whatever operation you are performing, you need to know that you can perform it safely. On the other side of that, if we're doing something where we have uncertainty about that, let's not go there right away. We cannot have a misstep. And certainly if there is a misstep, we need to own it, right? And those are important criteria in the safety first hierarchy with that. I think first and foremost, we'll see a gradual opening of dining. Again, as you say, we've got a lot in a lot of areas today, depending on where you are. I know some of our clubs over in the desert with members who stayed over there and who are inside the gated communities right now are doing incredible numbers of takeout meals every day. I think that'll ramp up first. Think about getting everybody outside, right? We're a little leery about internal spaces. We're concerned about being too close together. Again, another great advantage our clubs have. We can get folks outside. We can practice social distancing in some fun spaces. To do that, I think we'll roll out sort of a few nights of meals first. And we'll probably do that in smaller dining rooms. Social distancing, again, being part of that. I think it's important too, as you look at today, really use this time off to revise and streamline that food and beverage program. We still see a lot of sacred cows in the food and beverage program, white tablecloth restaurants that don't get used within the club. And we say, well, geez, we have to have it. Might be the time now to use as, the quotes getting trite and worn out, but we all know the famous Rahm Emanuel quote of never letting a crisis, the opportunity of crisis go to waste. And so the idea is to use this time to think about your dining platform, and the focus will be high-end casual as a big part of that. If you want some direction on that, I think a guy who's really taken a lead on this, most of us anyone who attended conference this year got to see Danny Meyer speak in person, another St. Louisan, now a New Yorker, one of the great restaurateurs in the United States today. He really has some highly informed views and opinions about what food and beverage is going to be like coming out of the crisis here. I would point you to Danny and think about some of the things that he's saying And he's really, again, pushing this high-end casual focus. Fits right with what we're doing. And then, eventually we'll get into some more full service activities. Modified golf, again, we're able to play where we're able to play golf, which we are able to here play in Missouri. I was talking to Brian Crow yesterday down at Johns Island. Record numbers of rounds of golf being played down there, even in the modified formats that are available to us. That'll happen. We'll probably have some limited fitness traffic and then more intensive traffic going forward. Seasonal clubs are going to have to think through this. I heard of a club, I'm pretty sure, on Nantucket. I think Nantucket Golf Club may actually not be going forward with any operations this coming summer for their inability to get seasonal staff out on an island there. So, any of us dealing with H-2B issues and all of that sort of thing, we're going to have to, again, think carefully about what we can do as operators and what the scope of our programs will be here. As part of this, we would encourage you, I'm sure all of you are doing a lot with the virtual club sort of model today. Again, we see this as a big part of the club going forward. Again, it's another opportunity that we can leverage here. We were doing more and more with messaging and maybe some videos and things on our websites and maybe video communication to our membership. This is an environment to really double down on that through that video messaging, virtual tours, as I mentioned, and I'm sure many of you are doing now, from the chef, the golf professional, the fitness staff, good opportunities to connect with members that way and keep that going. Online bridge, I think many of our seniors are going to be concerned at coming to the club. There's ways to set up online bridge games among our members. Educational opportunities. I don't know if Tim Musel at Olympic Club's on here today, but I talked with Tim the other day, and Olympic Club was having essentially a book, sort of signing or a book club meeting with one of their members who's also an author the other night. Had hundreds of members coming online to hear that. That's certainly something that, makes great sense right now, but there's no reason that won't make great sense in a month or 2 or 6 months going forward. And same thing with your committee meetings and board meetings and maybe even your annual meeting, all those kinds of things. Virtual club, virtual connection is going to be more ready. Everybody, again, up to speed on all this stuff and be able to do it. And so think about that as an important way to connect your club in, during the crisis, post-crisis, and beyond from there. There's an old saying in marketing that says you market your way out of a recession. That's certainly true. In this changing world, we think you're also going to research your way out of the cessation of activities. And so some short polls and questions to your members to understand them and think about ways to connect with them. Show them that you care, ask them some questions through short targeted surveys. What would make them comfortable to the club? How likely are they come to the club? What can we do to win them back? Those kinds of things, both to get the data around that so you can make some good decisions, but as research always is, that two-way street where you can show them that you really care about how they're feeling today and what they're thinking and those sorts of things. And so think about that as a tool within the next couple of weeks. We think that's going to play a big role as we get closer to reopening. Another piece of this would be sort of facility refresh. Think about how you're using your facilities and how you will use them going forward. Facilities obviously, remain a vital source for driving engagement. What we do and the programs that we can offer. We always say at McMahon, great facilities are the vehicle through which we're able to offer and deliver great programs to our membership. So many changes can be made quickly and effectively. Again, you want plan, and we're not talking about a detailed architectural plan at this point in time, but again, think about some innovative ways that you can use locations on the golf course, around your club campus, inside and particularly outside your clubhouse as a way to adapt your physical plant to the new environment that we're going to face. As mentioned earlier, safe and secured entries, we think are going to be a big part of this. An out front presence with receptionists. So I'll need to build a reception desk, but get a desk out there right at the entrance, controlling that, saying hi, members signing in. Again, all that is going to be a big piece of this. Think about your function spaces. Unfortunately, probably from a budgeting standpoint, it's going to be a while before we see the big weddings and, member guests and all those kinds of things. So you might be able to use some of those function spaces in different ways. Could that be a drop-in space? Could that be a cafe or a remote work location? Things to do in that regard. Spaces, outdoor settings and seating arrangements are a big part of it. Less dense dining rooms, and really the takeout. And we'll see where this goes. I know NCA is working. Hopefully, we'll get some relief here. We know that takeout has not traditionally been a traditional service by clubs, and some concerns about privacy with doing that. Hopefully we'll change that message and that ruling here. I heard they're even talking about bringing back the business tax deduction, entertainment deduction. I don't know if that'll roll all the way to dues. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But certainly it may go to entertainment and meals that way, and that would certainly be nice. But that program might be something that you also institutionalize. So think about that for this season as you move ahead. So finally, I would say, summing up on the first part of our dialogue today, we wanted to spend this time on hopefully beginning to turn the corner. And as I mentioned, it's regional. I haven't been in California for a while, so what I read, you've got a better handle on that. Certainly, you're getting a lot of kudos for the way the citizenry there has followed the distancing guidelines and seems to have averted the worst of what could have happened here. But use some innovative thinking, begin to get together and plan and think about how to make your club this safe and trusted space post-COVID-19. We're going to first have to manage to those 2020 realities, spend some time doing some research internally within the membership, experiment with some ideas, get some feedback, hold some online meetings with your committees, judge their wariness or their interest in coming to the club, how you can modify your behaviors in reaction to that sentiment that they may have, and refresh your plans and reset for the new and different future that we're certainly going to face here. Above all, stay true to that core of who you are. We are in the luxury end of hospitality. Avoid that pressure to cut. Avoid that pressure to cut initiation fees, to cut other programs. That's different than forbearance. You may have some members that you have to deal with in terms of payments and all that as you get through this, and that certainly is appropriate. Work with them on a one-on-one basis as you do that, but don't let short-term actions undermine your longer-term principles and values as a fine private club. So thank you for that. I think we're going to take a break here, and then we'll come back shortly.
Thanks, Frank. That was awesome. So it's 4:44 actually, so we have 16 minutes. We're going to move to break now. We're excited about you watching the entertainment that's
great. So Chris, I'm challenged with the Zoom.
Bottom left-hand corner will get you your audio. Bottom left-hand corner will get you your video.
Great. Bottom left-hand corner. Thanks, guys, I'm embarrassed that I'm.
Do you see it there? There you go.
Hi.
Beautiful, Donna. Oh, that's awesome.
Great. Can you hear me okay as well?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Crystal, and thank you, Frank and Nicholas. So Frank, I think for us, we've tried a lot of different avenues to engage with the members, whether it's hiding eggs at individual homes so that they wake up in the morning so the kids can have their Easter egg hunt. We've built out the marketplace, but I think, you know, we're good there. I think what the big unknown for me is, what does the future hold? So I feel like there's a temporary future, which is, you know, less or more space between diners, and then the future when things start to relax and people feel a little bit more confident, it'll go to another level. But how do you gauge, you know, what that immediate new future is going to look like? Do you have any insight and any advice that you can share with us on how we should be? So we were right in the middle of renovation, looking at renovating, you know, the fitness center. And now the question is, what kind of equipment do we put into the fitness center? And all those looming questions are coming, kind of percolating up now that we're maybe T minus 20 days to reopen.
Mhm. Well, I was saying, again, as we talk, and we'll cover a little bit in what we're going to go through now, for example, fitness, that trend's not going to change, right? I mean, the importance of that is going to be emphasized by this is more important than ever. The key trends in that relative to things like equipment and all that have actually been around a lot of just frankly space and personal body weight exercise and all those kinds of things as part of it that you would put in place. So as I say, we see it as a gradual unwinding, or winding back up, if you will, I guess, that I think at first you'll probably provide some access to that equipment and provide some access to space, and then maybe eventually that rolls over into classes and other things that you will offer there as you move there. But don't lose sight of how important that program's going to be, and that you're doing the right thing by making that investment, and it's going to serve you even better than you probably thought going into this, because the big commercial gyms and members were going in other places and all that. You have that opportunity of the safety, security, the check-in, the cleanliness, all that you can do above and beyond what a lot of the larger commercial environments are going to do. And I think you want to emphasize that through this program and make that happen. So, I think all of us have to, we're going to talk now about things that we think will happen over the next 3 to 5 years. Talked in the first part today. You break that down into right now, think about the next 6 weeks, like you're thinking about there. And then you're going to have to be agile, right? You're going to have to go into that. And somewhere in the July time period, whatever, you're probably then going to take some steps and take that up to the next level. And I think with, again, good communication, everybody's on to that right now. That's not going to surprise you. Remember, that would actually relieve them, I think, or help them to understand we're taking it a step at a time and moving along thoughtfully and everything that we do in that regard. So. I think it's like everything. When you have a big task, you break it down into the short-term time frame. We're really thinking that we sit here mid-April. You really sort of plan now April, June 1. Right? Then I think you're going to have a June, July, August at most. June, July certainly. Sort of window that you're going to be feeling your way and thinking about that. And then hopefully, we start to then get back to where we're going to start to be back to a more normal world.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Nicholas at this point? Nicholas, I have one just quickly for you, and that is, I'm just wondering how a club right now that maybe isn't in this type of system, what their first step should be to take a look at if this is even something that's viable for their club. Are you still there, Nicholas? Okay, well, I guess we'll hold for that. We'll hold for that answer. We'll get it, and we'll share if when he comes back on. Okay, Frank, why don't you take it away and get back, and we'll finish the second half of the education. Thank you, everybody.
Great, very good, fun to do, and this was really our original title, what we were going to spend the majority of our time on today. What I call trend watch, and the notion of that this has always been kind of a passion of mine and something I've been extremely interested in. When I first started getting involved in clubs, clubs would say we couldn't, we would say, well, we think we can help you or whatever. And they would say, well, sort of, no, we're so unique and so different. You can't really help us. And then we talk through that and say, well, tell me about how unique you are and how different you are and all those sorts of things. And we find that there were commonalities to all that, right? And again, as we talked in the first session, leaders have to internalize those and innovate those things within their individual club as they do that. But it's important to look out there, and there are dominant things that happen within society as you think through those things. As I mentioned, we've been thoughtful about this in the last few weeks, like all of you, what's going on in society. And as I say, we think that a lot of these will double down, just as I said to Donna there in her question. The health and wellness is only going to go up from where we were. But let's talk about it and sort of think about the world going forward as we look at our clubs. And so, coming into this, and we think about the clubs in general, is certainly this notion of the clubs. It was a different world that we faced, and we were looking at. I show here a picture of Topgolf, right? I mean, who would have thought? I don't know what have they been around? Maybe in parts of the country, probably longer than we might think, but certainly something I've been aware of for 3-4 years, that we might have, seen the Topgolf come online and become, popular and be part of what we were, thinking about and what's out there as an entity and out in the club world. So, it's and there's such representation in this slide that we're looking at around Topgolf and what it shows us, right? This is the ultimate sort of third place. We see folks here, golf is at the core of what they're doing. It's been gamified through the screens and the scorekeeping that they have. But look at the gathering of folks there. And I think all of us who go to Topgolf, I think one of the top takeaways we always hear is, geez, I can't believe how good the food, the beverage, and the service was at the club at Topgolf as I got there. So they really bring together all these sort of third place components that we talk about so frequently. It's fun, there's noise, there's light, there's sound, there's games, and at the core is food and beverage and reasons to gather, right, that are all part there. So it's a little club all to itself in a way as we look at that. And so as we think about the club or the Topgolf going forward and what they're offering, it's interesting to look at their mission and think about the organization there. Topgolf's mission, as we look at that, I'm sorry, can we go back one? How do we do that? Sorry about that. Let me see if I can do this. I'd like to go back one slide if I can. Yeah, there we go. As we look at Topgolf, the interesting thing with that is that their mission doesn't say anything about reinventing the driving range, or doesn't say anything about golf at all, right? Topgolf's mission is that actively engaged associates and guests create unforgettable shared experiences. And that their vision, now where do they think they're going to take Topgolf in the next several years, is a global sports and entertainment community creating great times for all, right? Good lessons there for clubs all the way around, right? Actively engaged in associates. Again, that stellar service component that we find there. And the guests working together for unforgettable and shared experiences. Boy, is that a club or not, right? And then, they want to take it globally, but entertainment community, not a facility, not a driving range, not a game, an entertainment community creating great times for all. So just a great lesson, I think, that you can take away from the whole Topgolf mentality and what they're doing. What a powerhouse that's become. What, 42 facilities around the country now. Fun, cutting edge, interesting, engaging, all those things that we do with that. And, you know, a lot of that can bleed back into our clubs, right? It's the same sort of notion as to how we create those unforgettable shared experiences for our membership. And we create community among our members as we do that. So as I mentioned earlier, and we'll go through some of these things a little quicker on some of the things we covered, but the external market is changing. The baby boomers are there. If you're in the desert and serving folks out there, you're probably very much engaged in the baby boomers. And frankly, while they're not a dominant force, at least in terms of joining and using our clubs in San Diego and Orange County and those sorts of places, we're only halfway through the boomers in terms of their move to the Sun Belt and to the second home clubs that are out there. As I say, we've been challenged in the club world because the number of people in the prime joining years has been smaller in recent years because of the Gen X being in that sweet spot. And our opportunity is the fact that the baby boomers are moving into that sweet spot. And we see that picture here of our diverse, casually dressed, diverse by race and gender, and active interest here among millennials coming into the club. And then certainly we see the family aspect of this going forward. Big pieces of what's going to happen for clubs in the future. And depending on where you are, you're either looking at that top left of that screen or the top right part of that screen as really the key opportunities. I mentioned earlier, and it was our poll question in the first session, how demographics are such powerful forces, that the baby boomers are moving away. Frankly, some baby boomers are moving out of your state. That's a bit of a challenge for you with the SALT reforms that we see within taxes. But the opportunity is that my ratio is happening. The middle to young ratio is increasing. Millennials may not like to admit it, but they're hitting middle age now, right? At the oldest being about 38 years old, and we have the opportunity moving forward. The challenge for our clubs is to think through our millennial generation and what they're looking for in the club world. Certainly, as we look at them, as I mentioned, they are a diverse generation. Clearly in California, big issues. They are at a digital age. We've talked today about continuing our virtual club, certainly offering our clubs in ways that members can make reservations and communicate with the club, more and more important than ever with this group. Millennials participate in multiple activities. The average golfing millennial participates in about 9 other recreational activities: fitness, wellness, cycling, other hiking, other kinds of things are very popular with this group as they do that. And frankly, their views on golf remain kind of questionable. They look at it as elitist, expensive, exclusionary. All the kind of the E words are not so good with this group here. And so again, I think the COVID, to tie it back to today, gives us an opportunity to kind of get away from some of that pretense, get away from some of that sort of background there, and make sure that our clubs are fun, that they are engaging, that they are appealing to this group. A lot of what we're talking about in this session is thinking about long-range planning and investing at the club. And certainly one of those big investments at clubs today is what we call the gateway amenity, the swimming pool. You see the swimming facility here today at Carmel Country Club out in Charlotte, North Carolina. Today, one of the powerhouse clubs in the United States who use this facility as the basis for turning around, repositioning, and reinventing that club overall. Again, if you want to attract 35 to 45-year-olds, this is the kind of facility that you can invest in and really have powerful forces on your membership and their uses, and that this club of the future is going to think about ways to bring all of this group together. When we think about the diverse perspectives and the diverse age profile of our membership, we have to be cognizant of that and that we serve these different groups. It's going to be a place to mix within that for the overall group as well as segments. That'll certainly be part of it. But as we stress, while we want members in all age groups to be satisfied with their club, it's absolutely critical that members in their first 5 years of membership be satisfied with their club. Our data show that 80% of new member referrals come from members in their first 5 years of membership. This is the group we need to keep happy, and we need to respond to their demands and their desires for the club if we're going to be successful. The chart that you're looking at here shows the fact that the number of member-owned private golf and country clubs has been in decline in the United States since the 1990s, a good 20% contraction that has occurred over that period of time. That line has gone steadily down in good economies and bad economies. So it's not just the economy. The society is voting about a less important club world, about changing values that made the club world irrelevant to them in many ways. And that it's really important that we respond to those demands that are out there. Monumental shifts in member expectations as we go through that. As we say, we believe here that golf remains core, but family, fitness, wellness, and fun will drive the club of the future. Casual indoor and outdoor dining opportunities, casual gathering spaces. We see the reinvented bars and indoor-outdoor facilities so critical to California. Health and fitness like Donna's doing at her club. Great multi-generational pool complexes are part of it. And then frankly, the importance of these other simple games and recreation, whether it's pickleball or tennis or bocce and golf simulators. These are all simple things that we can do to make our club that home away from home, that gathering space for our membership. And certainly as we think about doing that, figuring out ways to serve our entire family. One of the things that we'll see really growing in clubs of the future is dedicated spaces for children, having their own areas. A family club will increasingly mean we're welcoming the families through programs and activities, but we will actively and intentionally create spaces for children to come to the club, hang out and enjoy the club. Mom and dad might be participating in an activity. They might be lingering over dinner, and kids have a place to go, spend time with their friends. And when the kids are asking mom and dad to take them to the club, we're winning. We're going to be successful in that exchange. The number of clubs has declined pretty much in unison with the decline in golf rounds in the United States. So again, we talked about data-driven decision-making earlier, talked about getting our boards more aware of the trends that are out there. Fact of the matter is, and I always apologize when I show this slide, I'm an active golfer. I love golf, try and play as much as I can. My friend Bill Johnson out there, we get together and play some golf and do those kinds of things. But statistically, golf peaked in the United States in 2003. That's a fact. We're at numbers today that we last saw in the 1980s when there were 40 million fewer people in the country. That means the participation rate has come down to where less than 9% of adults in the United States ever set foot on the golf course. So our clubs, again, need to be holistic in their offering because of the challenges that are in the golf world. There are opportunities within golf, however, as we look at that. We think about the game. It's really a thought about thinking about the 1 and 2 hour golfer as much as we think about the 4 hour golfer. We're investing in facilities that are making golf great in terms of coming in and practice and golf fitness and training with the use of technology. Facilities like this are popping up across the country. If we are going to be great in golf, we have to give members this technology, these kinds of spaces to be able to enjoy the game and participate. Many of these are outdoors, as we're showing here, what we would call the Golf Performance Center aspect of that. The other aspect is bringing that in-house, as we see here at Columbine Country Club, with the indoor simulator rooms. You see kind of part of this is also a movie theater. They show kids movies in here. The kids play games in this space. Adults can come in here in the wintertime and play some golf at the club in winter in that regard. So lots of opportunities that we can create in relatively simple spaces. That children's room, sure, nicely outfitted, and even here, you always show pictures of, kind of wow facilities if you do that, but be mindful that we're talking about the concept here. I was just up at Owency, a great traditional club in Chicago. They have simulators in some spaces that I would have to say they don't look like this, but they're being utilized and are effective. So, you can always tiptoe into these things, but the idea is the same. Another reason to come to the club, another way to enjoy the great game of golf, even though we might not have 4 hours to play. And those who are playing, the smaller group that is playing, they want the technology, they want the fitting, they want the training, everything that goes along with that in order to be a great golfer. So when we think about that, like I say, we're not going away from golf. It remains core, but recognize that the player profile and the habits are changing. Recognize time in the golfing equation. And it's all about the member experience, using the game the way Topgolf is using the game to create community, create gathering, and investing in the clubhouse and other recreation leads to more golfers. So as we look at those big, broad changes there, and why Donna is right to invest in her fitness facility, even though they certainly have great golf at her club and many other great facilities there. But the Club of the Future is very much a place where there's a lot to do on a year-round basis as we do it. And all sorts of different games and recreation can combine to make that happen. And it's important that we do that if we're going to attract that next generation. These are strategic imperatives. These are strategic investments that do lead to more members within our clubs. Now, capital creates change, and I always add the statement here: McMahon does a lot of planning. We are heavily invested in the club facility planning because we think it's so integral to what we do. And clubs are investing records amounts of capital. They have been up to this point, and that's driven by both needs and wants. And frankly, the club world has been segmenting for a long time by those that can raise capital and reinvent their experience, and those that can't, right? And those that are stuck with sort of the old model, and those that are continually reinventing and repositioning the club. We don't see a change with that. We may slow a little bit, but I think we all know, and look around, talk to your fellow members, talk to folks in your chapter. I think the clubs that invested in 2007, 2008, that got good prices on construction, that found excellent interest rates. Think what interest rates are going to be in this environment. Raising that capital and using this as a time to invest. It's a little bit like the stock market, to invest when others think it's going south. Takes a bit of a gut check and all that as you get into it. But there's clear evidence that overall this capital creates that change and is necessary to do that. I heard that Ray Cronin's going to speak to the group tomorrow or the next day. Ray has done a wonderful job of getting the industry to focus on generating capital at the clubs, not the operating ledger. That's your issue as the executive. The board's issue or the planning committee's issue is to generate that capital. And we see nothing that's going to change that. In fact, we would say it's time to double down on that, giving our safe and trusted place status, giving the staycation mentality that our members are going to be seeking. That's the opportunity. And when we look at all those dollars going in the clubs, here are the three areas where that money is being invested. It's being invested in reinventing the dining and socializing spaces. On the left there, you get a glimpse of Desert Highlands as they reinvented their Dining, again, just like California, indoor, outdoor, take advantage of the views, the mountains, the setting, the ocean, the desert, whatever that may be. Modernize that dining to reflect and understand that your competition is dining is not another club. Your competition is the cool, fun place around town. And again, now you have the safety element that you can add to that, investing in dining and socializing, followed by the pool and aquatics facility. Again, if you take this chart, first dining and socialize, everybody eats. Secondly, you take the middle, you take the pool and aquatics facility. That's right in the sweet spot for the up-and-comers, those millennials coming in, the families coming in the club. And then third, we've got the health and fitness. So of all the capital that's being invested in clubs today, these three areas are getting a lion's share of that investment because of, as I've said, their impact on everyone, dining and fitness both. And then, of course, the pool and aquatics with its particular value to the younger generation. So these are the big three in terms of investing at clubs today. Capital improvements work. Again, we get questions, and I'm sure there'll be questions now from our boards, but fact of the matter is, when we look at clubs that make major improvements 1 year after the project, 93% of those clubs have equal or greater members than they had going into the project, including 55% who have more members with an average increase of 10%. It's quite a good return. You think about the average lifespan of a member, 8 years, 9 years is the average member tenure, 10% more. So take those annual dues, multiply them by 10%, multiply it by 8 years. Pretty good return on investing in facility improvements at our club. Many clubs stay the same. Some of those were at their cap. They didn't have a desire to grow, or else it just kept a satisfied membership, retained membership. Only in 7% of cases do we see clubs make major capital improvements, lose members, and stay down as a result of that. I would say that's generally a case from limited market that they may have made some good investments. They just did not have enough people living nearby the club to support it. And those change. We'll talk a little bit about more about that in a moment. So as we talk about, the dining, we kind of hit on this a little bit earlier, this notion of the club as the third place, home, work, and that other fun place to go in life. We have real opportunity here. We're going to see more opportunity to create these real casual settings for our members at our clubs, kind of like a Starbucks will certainly be part of it. That's certainly a big third place mentality. Cheers, right? The real investment in pubs at our club. A lot of our members like a good drink, and that's a big piece of this. But certainly what these spaces do is bring members together. The bars are safe spaces. We can drop in there. We can go in there as an individual, meet other members, choose up tables, all those kinds of things as we do that. And we see that emphasis continuing. And certainly the reinvention of the dining more broadly. Food and dining and all of that have never been more popular. Where our food comes from, our craft beers, our wines and all that, our chef establishing a real relationship with our members that way is absolutely critical, understanding their palates. And again, we believe after COVID, a high-end casual is going to be the sweet spot. Interestingly, while casual is a watchword, that's not a substitute for quality. People want the casual environment, but they want the quality food and beverages to go along with that. And they're doing that in spaces that look like this, not the stuffy old club of the past. Sports bar, we've got TVs, we got noise. Think back to that Topgolf picture. These are the kind of spaces that we're creating in clubs in order to do that. All of this is driven around a notion of creating a membership, and size matters within the membership at our clubs here. The larger that we see within clubs today, the larger clubs have higher satisfaction. It creates more revenue, gives us more opportunity. The opportunity there is that golf in many ways, access to the first tee, no longer sets the size the way it once did. And these multiple recreation opportunities, as we mentioned, matter to our members, and that this larger membership can support more. So we're advising many of our clients to think about moving past the caps of the past, think about growing that membership to a larger number so that you can create the club of the future to do that. And as we touched on earlier, and I'll kind of go by this relatively quickly, but again, the reason to make those capital investments is so that you, as the hospitality leader within the club, have the opportunity to create these programmed experiences for our members. Members more and more want a programmed experience. They expect you to create that and deliver on that. It's the heart of the experience. Those programs need to be multi-generational. Think about creating those clubs within the club, the book clubs or the card groups or whatever it may be. Think about schedule shifting based upon what we talked about earlier. Day, evening, and weekend activities are a big part of this. So if we're in fitness, the fitness classes need to be at nighttime. If we're offering golf for women, we can't count on anymore that women are home on Tuesday and Wednesday morning to play 9 and 18-hole golf. We need to move some of those leagues to Thursday night and Wednesday night. Those kinds of programs, as I say, that's your job to develop and schedule those programs and put those into the facilities that we need in order to deliver that. Donna's going to have a lot of success with expanding the fitness facilities at her clubs there. When we get back to it, we're not there yet. The classes, again, are right in our wheelhouse because they bring people together. We're going to see some more individualized training here right out of the gate. But in the longer term, we're going to get back to these classes. And again, that's members participating in activities with other members. A club like Desert Highlands is doing a wonderful job these days with all the different training and everything that they do with that. And really, again, another opportunity for us is these simple things are in, and we believe simple, that watchword, as we say, going forward here. And so, pickleball, striping courts, creating courts, whatever, big opportunities to do that. Bocce's another simple game there. I've got some clients over in the desert having great success with these. You can do these anywhere. And these are the kind of things that are growing and popular within our club. So all these trends are going to hold up and we think be further emphasized by members in the new club world. So all has to be done through strategy and thinking about where the club is going. We hope the combination of sessions here has given you the sense that the world is changing and that it's absolutely vital that leaders are thoughtful about that and involved in that planning. Today's boards, they need to challenge that. They're going to be challenged right now in 2020, and that those challenges will continue. They need to be creative and visionary, spend that time understanding the environment, having a sense of purpose, communicating with the members to build that sense of trust, and be positive. Be positive today. Again, people might be looking at the industry or looking at their club right now and saying, my gosh, how's that going to work? Well, it's going to work because it is that safe and trusted place to go. And the board needs to be the catalyst to achieve those results. The board needs the group to focus on that capital side of the business, both in terms of reserve replacement as well as aspirational improvements. We can get all wrapped around the axle about strategic planning. What's it mean, all that? It's really an answer to a very simple question. What type of club must we become over the next 5 years? If you think in those 5-year increments, think about where we want to get to. Look at some of these macro forces, demographically, lifestyle-wise, and then bring those back to your club and think about how we work that in and think about the multi-generational approach to that. It's extremely important. We think simpler is better. We think refreshing a strategy is better than trying to get into some big wonky strategic program of lengthy reports and everything about the club. There's 3 or 4 or 5 categories to really take a look at and think about what we need to do at the club, and that's a role that you need to lead and can lead effectively with your board. These charts are here that we're showing kind of the wonky side of strategic planning. The key takeaways with that, very straightforward. Who are we? What's our mission? Where do we want to go? What's our vision? What are our strengths and weaknesses relative to that? And as I say, what are those 3, 5, 7 major issues that you need to work on to make those happen? The key takeaway for me on this chart is on the left side of the screen, where it says the board and the general manager partner in this activity. Your board needs to own strategic planning. It's their job. It's not something delegated to another committee. And you need to be at the table as the club general manager, leading that, participating in that. I'm sorry, not leading it, participating in that with your board as you do that, and giving again, your insights and participating with that, but also so that you generate that ultimate clarity and can turn around and take that strategic plan and drive it through the organization, right? That's really your key role coming out of this when you go through the planning. One of the things we haven't mentioned today that I would just, sort of ties a little bit back to the facility side of it, but as part of strategic planning, also think about that brand and think about that history. We really have a lot of data and feedback that tells us that today's member wants a modern experience, but they love the cloaking of the history and tradition. So whether you have a golf course designed by Donald Ross, or whether you have something like the History Hall that you're looking at there at Cherry Hills outside Denver, tell your story. What makes your club special? Why was it founded? What special achievements did it have? How did it survive challenges of today, or those other challenges that have come up along the way in terms of the club? That's an important thing to do. But going forward, I think that the key for you and your board in this environment is that success requires that respect for those traditions, but an adaptation to the changing environment. The organizational structure of most clubs short circuits that continuity in direction and execution. The 1-year term for presidents at the club, the 3-year terms for board members, those kinds of things. Work organizationally within your club to try and extend those time frames. If we're doing the right thing, that sounds burdensome to some folks today. You talk to your current president and say, well, we want to have 2-year terms. They might choke on that a little bit, but when we get that in place, all of a sudden that job takes on a whole different dimension, and a stress level goes way down, the horizon goes up, the effectiveness increases. So you really want to talk to your leadership, and especially today, I'm sure all of you are meeting more and more frequently with your board as you're doing this. Get them to commit both to this short-term 2020 plan and to a longer-term plan, that there is their job to analyze and plan, their job to communicate out to the membership, update that regularly, and make sure that they're passing that on from board to board as they do that. A big point of departure, certainly you hear this time and again from McMahon. Again, you're going to hear it from Ray Cronin tomorrow. Rely on data and fact to make your decision, not emotions. Club boardrooms are still too dominated by the loud voice, too dominated by those who know or think they know more correctly, without a true understanding of the environment, without good data on the membership, without good data on the industry. It's your job as leaders to make them aware of that. Their members, some board members, they know their club reasonably well. They might go to some other clubs. They have some strong opinions, but often not really, all that informed about the industry and about the dominant trends that are out there. Make data your friend, bring it into the boardroom and have it be part of what you're doing here. The other aspect of this, as I say, is really that member input, really understanding members from the basics. Why did they join? What are the most important activities to them? Are they willing to recommend members? What's their referral rate at the club? What sort of things would they like to see at the club in the future, both in terms of programs and facilities? That data helps you bridge those gaps between the segments, helps you understand what's important to certain groups, look at the results by all members, but also bring out that, yes, our older member group's going to want something, our younger member group is going to want something else maybe as part of that. It helps you manage towards that and use that that input as a way to innovate and be effective as planners. And I think there's a short-term get in touch survey with your members here right in your near future to welcome them back and invite them back to the club. Then there's the more traditional survey beyond that. That again, and a lot of this data again is to help your board, who might often be telling you, well, they only joined because of the golf course, they only this or they only that. And the reality is much more complex than that, much more diverse and much more spread across the generations as you look at it. The other things that we really certainly emphasize and want to point out is that your location is extremely important. The chart here is showing us that 74% of club members live within 7 miles or 15 minutes of the front door of their club. So again, know that area, right? Concentrate on what's going on. You need to know that 7-mile band. I mentioned earlier, clubs that maybe invest capital and don't succeed, it's probably because this 7-mile band wasn't very strong. So you need to understand that. And there's good data today that you can go out there and collect. And here's a chart showing a club and those green bubbles showing the average income right around the club in 5, 10, and 15-mile bubbles. You can do a lot of research today through realtors, through other websites, find out where the money is, frankly, in your community. That's the world we operate in. Find out where those members are and really spend some time understanding what's going on in there demographically. Understand also your competitive set. What do the other clubs offer? What are their facilities like? What are their programs are like? Bring this intelligence and bring this information back to the board. I'll find many times I'll be working with clubs very close to one another, and the perceptions of Club A from Club B are often wildly different than what's really happening in that club. So a lot of this comes back to leadership. Certainly emphasizing the board development program is a big part of this. Make sure that your board is preparing for service by working on committees and task force. Have a good orientation. Continuing education, as we're emphasizing here today. Get them this kind of information. Get them McMahon's Club trends. Get them club benchmarkings reports. Some of these other limited informational programs out there today. And build that trusted slate of advisors. So your board has insights into industry and effective practices, the accountants and other folks that can help your club think through to the future as you do this. And certainly the board having a communications piece to this. A lot of times we talk in clubs about building, about increasing communication or being more effective communicators. What we emphasize is communicate to build alignment. When the board has done this thinking, when you have participated with that thinking of your board, push that information out to the membership. People will follow your plan. They will gravitate to your plan when you have the information and bring them together that way. And a lot of times, again, you're reporting back on what they told you, what they asked you for, and you're looking to solve that for them, key areas. The other things, and it's particularly right now, I think there's a real opportunity, what we call influence your influencers, the opportunity to work with those committees that you have at the club. They've put their hand up. They are willing to serve. They want to be part of it. Bring them in. Often we find committees working in silos. We find committees maybe not particularly well informed about the strategy of the club overall. Bring your committees today. It would be a great opportunity right now. Hold a Zoom meeting in the next 4 to 6 weeks with all the members of the committee of the club. on the committees of the club. Talk about what you're doing. Talk about plans for 2020. This is a group then that they can spread that word to their fellow members. That generates alignment, that brings people your way, that helps people follow this plan that you're going to put together and lead. And that's really the key to success for the club, is the key to purposeful governance, right? A sound foundation. We're encouraging our clubs today to move beyond the old nominating committee that suggests we need to get a nominating slate together in the next 30 days, 60 days. Think about a board development committee in session year-round, looking for new directors, training those directors, have a strategic plan. Obviously, you will all support having the best management team you can afford to have at your club. Enroll your members, align your committees with that, and certainly through that, eliminate those personal agendas as part of that. So we're right at our time, and we'll be able to go into Q&A. But I would say, summing up, we are entering a period of dramatic demographic change. Golf is a great game at the core for many of us that are in that country club with golf, but that's being impacted by time. The key reason people belong to clubs is they have an age-old desire to associate. Clubs have been around since the time of the Greeks, well before golf, well before other activities. It's about people getting together with other people. That's a more diverse group today, a more active group today. Think about ways that your clubs can do that. When you get your strategy right, generating capital then to invest in facilities is a rather natural, not necessarily easy, but natural extension of those processes. So with that, Crystal, I think hopefully we have a question or two.
Oh, thanks so much, Frank. That was really a lot of information for us to think about. And I just love how positive you were, in light of where we are right now. And you just bring so much, I'm going to say hope, and I'm almost going to use the word enthusiasm to what's in front of us.
So, it's interesting on that line, because it's been a bit frustrating, right? At times of other, times of upset, right? After 9/11, for example, or even, 2009, 10, in that period of time, our clubs could immediately serve as that gathering place, right? And so that was, and that's what you all live for as hospitality providers. We've been curtailed in that right now, so, but I think that's coming our way. I think that opportunity is right around the corner for us. And, that's going to be really good for clubs here. And you as club leaders need to spread that enthusiasm among your board and among your members. We're here. We're going to be here for you. We're excited about getting open again. And our club is going to be a great place to be.
Awesome. Kim, do we have any questions?
Yes, we do have one question. Frank, the question is, what type of changes can be anticipated in the gathering of larger private party activity in the intermediate term? For example, a wedding for 200 in November. Things are generally okay and back to mostly normal. Can we realistically expect 200 to come?
Yeah, really difficult. You look at who you're, we're all getting a lot of information these days and paying attention to it. One of the people that I think has been most rational in all of this, and I follow, Bill Gates, right, he obviously made his money in computers, but he's very passionate about health and wellness. He actually called this pandemic a couple of years ago and advised the world that they were not ready. Bill Gates sees those kinds of events happening towards the end of 2021, not in 2020. It'll be interesting to see. His theory is until you really have the vaccine or any antivirals, we're going to be, damped down there. And the particular aspect of weddings is troubling because of, generally we've got grandma and grandpa and everybody else there, right? So we bring in a lot of the more vulnerable parts of society to a wedding as we do that. So I'd have to bet that November is the earliest. I wouldn't be surprised if it was beyond that. unfortunately. Maybe some smaller gatherings, maybe that wedding moves outside into a tent and a pavilion or around a golf green, or, brides are going to have to be kind of innovative as they do that. I have 3 daughters who are between the ages of 28 and 33. And so fortunately, 2 of them got married last year. So we were very excited that was not this year, but all their friends well into the time frame that you're talking about, those weddings have kind of gone away. And so I wouldn't count on that, for the 2020 season.
Thanks. Is there anything else, Kim, any other questions?
There are no other questions. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. So Lindsay's back on. We'd just like to thank you, Frank, for all the information that you shared with us today.
It's fantastic. Thank you so much, Frank.
Great to be with you. Everybody stay well, enjoy. The good times are coming here, I think, and stay healthy in the meantime. And thanks for letting me do this today. And let us know at McMahon Group whatever information we can share with you. We'd love to push that out to you and share that. And I know Crystal and Lindsay will make the presentation available. And I hope it's helpful to you. I hope it's helpful to your boards.
Well,
Crystal?
Cheers.
One other question has come in actually before we hang up. We have about 4 minutes. Can we ask that question?
Go ahead, Kim, please.
Okay. What challenges do you see for golf-only clubs, and what can they do to stay relevant?
Well, I think I'll call that going narrow today, right? I said more broadly, we believe the country club of the future is a place with a lot to do on a year-round basis. Now, if that's not you and you're taking the other side of that coin, you really have to double down on greatness, right? If you're going to be a golf-only club, or you're going to go niche, I don't care if you're going to be a dining-only club or any only club, that you might put that qualifier on your experience. It absolutely has to be the best. And so if you're going narrow that way, then the quality level, I believe, has to ramp up. You're less of a department store and you're more of a specialty retailer, if you will, at that point in time. And also look to great clubs, right? If you look to Merion Golf Club outside Philadelphia, Merion Golf Club will tell you that they are a family club, golf only, but they will insist that they are a great family club, and they are. And they actually look down their nose a little bit at some of the other clubs in Philadelphia and say, well, you're not really a family club if you push all the kids off to the swimming pool or, those kinds of things and kind of sequester them. At Merion, kids are welcome on that golf course at a very early age. They are passing down that passion from the adult members to the kids. Juniors are a big part of it. Caddies are a big part of it. They are invested in the game. They are living that game. And they are still family oriented as they do that. So they have a multi-generational membership and are thriving in a world where, golf, as we said, has its pressures. Obviously, it's Merion. It's a great club. But frankly, most of the golf rounds at Merion are played on the West course, not on the famous East course. And, it really does serve as that kind of example of how a great golf club can still work in this day and age, but great is the key word.
Thank you. Any other questions, Kim?
That was the final question. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'd like to remind you that we do have a repository on our website related to COVID-19, and we are posting information if you send it to us. So if you had anything additional you think we should be putting out there, please send it, and we'll get it out there so that we can benefit all of our members. And again, this morning, our pulse survey was sent out. It closes at midnight tonight. If you haven't yet completed it, please do that again. I think another link may be coming out in a few minutes for you.